Fresh Arts International presents Fresh Talk, conversations about creativity in the 21st century. I'm Cathy Byrd, Fresh Art producer, and this morning I'm sitting inside Ballroom Marfa with the director, Fairfax Dorn, Melissa McDonnell, DriveIn project manager, and Nikki Ittner, head of music and events, all three members of a creative team that shapes the programming for Ballroom Marfa. Fairfax moved to Marfa from New York City to launch this space, and Ballroom's programming now encompasses visual arts exhibitions, music events, and film screenings, as well as dance and theater productions. You seem to be generating a ton of creative energy here, and I know from trying to reach you before I came here how caught up you are in producing cultural events for Marfa. And I would like to know from you, Fairfax, why Marfa?
My background is as a painter. I was an artist, and then I also worked at the Whitney and Exit Art, and then after I decided to leave New York City in my early 20s, and I moved to Terra Lingua, and the co-founder, who's also my dear friend, Virginia Leverman, moved there as well. And Terra Lingua is about 2 hours south of Marfa, Texas, near Big Bend National Park. So we were sort of, we had been to Marfa and always, sort of admired what was happening in Marfa with Trinati and Judd Foundation. And it wasn't until we were actually sort of living in the desert in Terra Lingua did we realize sort of other things that were sort of conjuring up in terms of filling a void. That's what we, I think, do out in the desert. We'd like to fill space, so to speak, and was starting to come up to Marfa after the Lannan Foundation established themselves here, and they were giving readings and so forth, and we would come up here to experience those programs. And we were both really struck by that experience, of having this cultural experience out in the royal landscape. And we thought, there was room for more to exist in Marfa along the side of the Trinati and Judd Foundation and Lannan Foundation. And there was also the Marfa Book Company and Maya's Restaurant. All these things were sort of just starting to sort of really grow, and we just saw the energy there, and I think it was around 2002. And thought, wouldn't it be great to have a space which incorporated the visual arts, film and music and performance, and having all those experiences out in this landscape. Because what, the original inspiration was to sort of project films and so forth out in the canyons of, near Big Bend National Park, and to, sort of bring people to that place, to nature. And I don't know, it's just all about having these experiences and having a sort of intimate relationship with the arts in this way, and nature as well.
And so Marfa being a destination instead of just a little town.
Right. There's definitely the legacy of the Judd Foundation and the Marfa Lights and the National Park and everything else that exists here. That has helped us create this, platform.
And who is your audience for what you do here?
There's a lot of young people who come here right out of college. We have just the international scene of museum visitors. It's very, there's a whole wide range, art and designer, architects. Melissa, she gets called all the time from different schools, right?
Yeah, we've had a lot of groups from architecture schools come in. So we just had an architecture group from Juarez in Mexico come up here and wanted to hear about the drive-in, wanted to hear about Ballroom, and did all the tours. So it's pretty even international in the students that are moving through here. But I think we also see a lot of, for our events and music events and visual arts program, we see visitors from Alpine, Marathon, Presidio, El Paso.
LA,
and for big ones, driving and flying from all over.
Yeah,
Right.
all over. A lot of them, they made the pilgrimage. I
Yeah.
mean, Europe, Germany, France, London. I mean, all over the place.
So tell me how you've shaped the programming here.
I, also work with Virginia Leverman, the co-founder of Ballroom Marfa, on ideas that we're interested in, and I either will curate shows or we will invite curators to present projects. And we like to keep our programming very diverse. So there'll be group exhibitions based on a concept or solo exhibitions. And we're primarily interested in commissioning new works.
The next morning, I met with Marfa Ballroom Director Fairfax Dorn, Project Manager Melissa McDonnell, and Architect Michael Meredith to learn more about plans to create a contemporary drive-in theater for Marfa.
The idea of the ballroom is about the idea of convergence of people. And so bringing that out and sort of like this in the desert was important to us. Our programming is constant throughout the year, 10 to 12 major music programs. We have an interesting film program called The Reading, which is involved with the Academy of Art and Sciences, with the Nichols Fellowship, and we
have art in the auditorium.
Yeah, art in the auditorium, Whitechapel Gallery. It's an international video program. We are one of 8 organizations that they've invited to participate in this program of exhibiting. We choose a video artist that representative of North America, an emerging artist, and we sort of exchange all of our. It's more like an exchange program between our video. All these video artists.
And when you do the film screenings and the performances so far, you're using your venue, but also I noticed you had an event at the Capri, and so does this drive-in?
We use multiple venues, yeah, and then and the drive-in is like an extension of our mission. In a much larger sense, and we, as we said, we started this concept very early on. When we began Ballroom, and it was like pretty much shortly after in 2004, and it was an idea that Virginia Leverman and Vance Knowles and I came up with after visiting with Josh Siegel, film curator of MoMA, and he was just wondering why we don't have a drive-in theater, and we're like, well, Marfa used to have a drive-in, and then we thought, well, why don't we build a drive-in? And then we just took the concept even further by introducing the idea of design. And that's where Michael came in. Right. So, and it's just sort of a change. And it's more than just a drive-in, obviously. It's this outdoor performing arts, venue.
And how did the setting influence your design, Michael?
Well, I mean, the site is very important to it. I mean, in the end, it's a drive-in. It follows all the tropes of a drive-in. I mean, there's not that many parts to it. I mean, there's a screen, except the thing that we've added is a band shell under the screen, more or less, so you can have music performances and things like this. But otherwise, it's pretty close to a vernacular drive-in, and we were looking at even old engineering books of drive-ins and how they look at the ground in certain ways. Yeah. And in terms of the site itself, it's a really powerful site. You don't try to compete with it. I mean, the idea was just to do something, just a few elements in the landscape, kind of at the edge of Marfa, and near the golf course and a baseball field and sort of community parks.
We hope that will be situated in a public park.
Hopefully this becomes just really used.
Part of the landscape.
Yeah, part of the community, and really get, used by the schools as much as, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, no, the whole idea is for it to be used by everyone, not just Ballroom.
We were talking about it yesterday.
Right, and just that kind of the level of engagement, and I think the design provides for that, being able to be cross-programmed. So the concept which Moss introduced of a band shell that emerges into a screen allows us to have everything from, a theatrical performance to a concert, symphony, opera, we talked about high school graduation happening there, or a gospel choir sunrise service, to our more typical programs that we put on, concerts that we typically put on at Ballroom, and film series. And the idea is also to welcome the community to program the space as well. So it being a public space that other organizations can use it and come up with their own ideas for programming and book the drive-in space. And I think also the field provides for a lot of different levels of engagement. It becomes this kind of landscape that you can enjoy, and kind of it's very playful, and
like
there's
a park almost.
yeah,
in some way it could become used as a, let's say, park-like space, as well as a drive-in, as well as a kind of small
playground.
I mean, it's all sort of taking on vernacular, almost sort of the abject vernacular of a kind of Americana. So this kind of drive-in, but then also the playground and things like this that are going to become part of it. Just how to deal with signage, which is always such a big deal. Or things like this are going to.
And we're commissioning new some works. We're working with Leah Villarreal on some of the lighting designs, and also hopefully Matthew Day Jackson. They're both on our board. And basically, and we do a lot of commission new, that's what we also do at Ballroom in terms of our visual arts program, is commission new works and for different projects.
Yeah, and I think what Michael's speaking to is taking that vernacular of, Leo Villarreal he grew up in El Paso and was always inspired by the Fiesta Drive-In sign that, in El Paso, like that just lighting element was so striking to him. So taking that and reworking it into kind of a lighting system, an art piece at the our drive-in, at Ballroom Marfa's drive-in, and then Matthew Day Jackson taking that. There's always like a typical playground right in front of the screen, and thinking about concepts for the playground of kind of new concepts that use the typology of slides and jungle gyms and change it into something else that's both kind of an art piece but also something that can be played upon.
So there should be a kind of familiarity to all the elements.
Yes.
To some way, people will go there and they'll say, oh yeah, playground, but it's, and there'll be some memory, I guess, of this, but it will be done in a totally different way. So it plays off of this kind of, almost what everybody thinks of as a drive-in, hopefully. And so, the screen is going to be like steel and metal, like a drive-in screen.
Right.
And
then you could tune in on the radio and, watch movies and...
And there's also a large pedestrian area, so you can also, park or ride your bike or take your horse and come to the park and and then sit out on a kind of knoll or in a chair or picnic blanket. So there's a kind of few different options of how you might experience the
I noticed the topography in the maquette. It showed different levels of perspective.
Right.
Yeah, it's very subtle, though. I mean, the idea is it should be in the end, I think, like kind of, a lot of the original bumps come from these engineering books from drive-ins, which I think a lot of people didn't do, but when they were engineering drive-ins, I guess, it was kind of preferred that you could sit in your car and be at a certain angle. So it was basically flat, but you were tilted up a little bit. And then the seating for the pedestrians, you need a little bit of a slope just to be able to see properly. So it's also a work in progress, so we'll see what happens. But
yeah, I think if you can even look at the old Marfa Drive-In, which was torn down in 1995, I believe, and closed in 1989. You can still see like a Google Earth image, and you can see those those marks imprint in the landscape of that same kind of incline. That and that one you hosted 300 cars, so it was.
What is the capacity you've envisioned?
We have about 90, and we're in design, so there might be changes to this, but we're looking at the possibility of about 90 cars, and I think there's 1,200
seats. I mean, it's actually kind of a lot of people seating more than cars. There'll be a mix of cars and.
Yeah. Right, and it's interchangeable. So, like, if you have
Yeah.
If it
Depending on what
turns
you're
into a big
using.
concert and it could be 5,000 people. Or
Yeah,
something, you know.
people could sit.
Right.
Also, you could get rid of the cars and have more seating in there for people and stuff like that. Or
I like
at
the
least-
idea we were talking about that you could do a music festival there.
Right.
The way it's being designed.
Right.
So it could
Right.
be any scale.
It could be.
Yeah.
Depending on.
There'll be some limits, I assume, in scale,
Yeah.
but yeah, any scale sounds.
It's a little too.
Yeah, it sounds,
Marfa
sounds
has probably
great,
a
but it
certain
sounds
scale,
great, but it
too.
seems unrealistic.
Well, I guess in this landscape, you start thinking.
Yeah, sure, you could
Fast.
keep. Why not?
Right.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. That's the benefit of the desert.
You've been listening to a Fresh Talk feature on Ballroom Marfa. Read more about Ballroom and hear other podcasts in this series on freshartinternational.com.